Special edition of the Sit Down with Malik Wright. We're live in Indy at the NFL Scouting Combine. I'm here joined by two guys I have a lot of respect for. We've got senior draft analyst over at PFF. We got Trevor Sikkema. I pronounced his name correctly.
You did. You nailed it. You nailed it.
Kind of worried about that for a second.
You got it.
And
The double Ks, sometimes it's tough. You look at it and you start sweating, but, you came up clutch. I know you would.
There we go. We've got lead draft analyst over at Parsons, my guy, man. Appreciate you guys for joining me. I definitely wanted to make sure we had a discussion, right? There's a discourse going on right now about Brock Bowers, and the conversation is he's generational. The term generational gets thrown around a lot in our industry, I would say. And, even speaking with him today, one of the questions I asked him, I said, hey, Brock, a lot of people talk about you as being this can't-miss prospect. You're being talked about as sort of a can't-miss prospect, but what area of your game would you say that you need to improve upon? And have you met with the Bengals as well?
Yeah, I've met with the Bengals, and I think one of the things I can improve upon is kind of secondary reaction when I'm blocking, like getting engaged with somebody and they spin or something, and just being able to reset and re-engage.
Kind of talked about some of the things that we talked about, like sort of like the inline blocking, things like that.
Yeah.
But I'm very curious to hear both of you guys' opinion. Trevor, let's start with Dame actually first.
Okay.
Dave,
Dame's my guy, so this is good. I want to hear. Let's
start with you. What is your thoughts on the generational can't miss prospect that is Brock Bowers?
First of all, I hate the term generational. It sets these kids up for just unrealistic expectations. We did it to Trevor Lawrence. If you're not winning the Super Bowl by year 3, what are we, right? But when you look at Brock Bowers, he's an elite talent, especially after the catch. Explosive, strong, powerful, can run through arm tackles and contact. He's a collision player. And there's a guy that you want to get out into space. You want to get him out there, quick little handoffs, quick little flat routes, different things like that. Turn on that Auburn game. That was one of the best tapes of any prospect in the 2024 NFL draft. Second half of that game, he took over. Where that offense was, Auburn had them kind of under wraps for a little bit, right? Like they got good corners, they got a good line, everything. But Brock Bowers just became a guy that you just couldn't cover in the fourth quarter, especially in the second half of that game. But the blocking is where things take a turn for me. He's not the average or traditional tight end, guys. Like he's not going to be the guy that you put in line, tell him block Myles Garrett, tell him block TJ Watt, block these type of defenders who are so good at the point of attack, and they bring a different level of power and strength. He's more of a spatial blocker, movement guy. I want him climbing up to the second level, wall off that linebacker, get to that safety, get to that nickel corner. So much split flow action is in the NFL nowadays. I want him as that slice blocker, coming backside. Take that backside tight end out the equation, give my running back a lane to cut up into or to find. I think that's where you get him. More so as a movement. He competes. So the energy and the effort is never in question. It's more so the strength, the size. Will he physically be able to move, turn, and torque some of these guys that's playing base defensive end in the NFL? I don't think that's the best use for him. I want him detached. I want him getting up on those nickels, corners, and letting them get those guys who I know for a fact, he gets hands on, he can get them out my way.
Right? Yeah. No, I agree 100%. I think that he nailed it. I think that move tight end label is like what I like to see from him, right? And when you think about tight ends, when you mention like those traditional type of tight ends, sometimes you think about that sixth offensive lineman, right? That guy that you could put on the end of the line of scrimmage and it's on right. And you get those like 6-man protections, right? And you get that feeling of, and actually it's funny, like Brock Bowers talked about Gronk as somebody that he, tries to emulate his game after, but he's not built like Gronk. Like I think the receiving part of it is probably what he watches. And he's like, that's the type of Gronkowski he wants to be. But, people often forget, like even in Gronk's last couple of years in Tampa, like he's single blocking DNs and like Bowers is not going to do that. So I agree with you. The term generational is overused. It's dumb. It sets kids up for failure, no doubt about it. He was really, really productive in college, graded out really well for PFF. He had an elite grade basically every single season. So hyper productive player. But when you talk about, okay, where do you draft him? Right. I think we'll see some of the measurables. He's going to be smaller than I think the general public believes that he is, which is fine because when you watch his tape, like you said, what you want out of him is that yards after catch ability. You want him to be like a wing back off the line of scrimmage. I love the split zone type of blocker that you have because I think he'd be phenomenal at it. Absolutely. Elite blocker and some like toss plays that's getting you to the outside, getting to the second level. I agree 100%. And then you're going to use this guy a lot in the slot. You are. He's going to be like a big power slot type of receiver. I know Nate Tice likes to use the term power slot, and I think that that's a perfect example of what Brock Bowers can be as a tight end. So it's not that these, I don't even necessarily want to call them negatives, but just when you paint the whole picture of him, there's some things he does really well, and there's some things that just he is a little bit limited for. And that doesn't make him any worse of a prospect, but it does affect, to me, where you take him and the fact that he would be good for every NFL team, but there are NFL teams that are going to get more out of his strengths than not. And so, like, that's when, like, okay, well, people talk about Jim Harbaugh at 5 for the Chargers, and they go like, oh, loves big tight ends, like Brock Bowers is a play at 5. And, like, I don't know if that's the case, because he's not necessarily a Harbaugh type of tight end build guy. So that's just kind of the conversations that I think are more constructive when you talk about what Brock Bowers can be.
Right. And we were touching on that a little bit more. I think a lot has been made about Brock Bowers' size when it comes to that picture he took with Rob Gronkowski.
Yeah. Bad angle for him. That was bad angle. That was tough.
Right. So I think that when people see that, they're like, whoa, we don't even know if this guy can play the same exact position as this guy. I think we all can agree all tight ends aren't created equal.
No.
But we talked a little bit about his weaknesses. What are some of his strengths, guys, that you guys think he'd bring to an NFL franchise? Obviously, the receiving threat, the run after the catch, but touch a little bit more on that, Trev.
It's just that determined play style that Damian hit on. I mean, you don't get on the field at Georgia if you're not truly like giving it your all at all times, and you're not afraid to be physical, right? And there was another guy that was at the podium earlier this morning, Javon Bullard, who he also played as an underclassman. He got on the field as an underclassman. And when you do that for a talented program and a Kirby Smart program, it's only because like you're willing to do what it takes to win at the position at a very physical level. So Brock Bowers to me is always somebody who is going to give you whatever his all is, whether it is from a receiving perspective, running the routes at full speed that he possibly can, getting into his blocks the best way that he can. He'll take on any assignment. You know, you don't want him taking on defensive ends too often, but like he'll block guys with everything he's got. So, I mean, to me, it starts with that kind of strength level. And then, like Damian mentioned, man, the yards after catchability, those contested catches, breaking tackles. I don't think he's going to be like a major like separator at the NFL level, but because I liked him as a linear athlete more than just like a left to right kind of an athlete. But still, man, to me, that's his strength is that mentality that he brings to it, and that after the catch athleticism.
100%. And you think about the defenses that you could potentially face in the NFL. He's a zone killer through and through.
For sure.
A guy that can press up the seam, break inside, right? You got linebackers following to their drops into their spots, and he could just sit down and be available.
Right.
The processing, the understanding of where those coverage spot droppers are going. He does a great job of those things.
Yeah.
But like you said, the man-to-man stuff, because he didn't face it a ton at Georgia because of how the offense was structured, especially with Stetson Bennett, things like that. They would move him around. You didn't get a chance to get hands-on. And in the NFL, if you're going to be detached in the slot, they're going to put a nickel corner up on the line.
Right. They'll challenge you
a safety,
for sure.
You know, a Derwin James, all these different guys. You think about Jesse Bates. These guys who could do multiple things and be versatile, they can get up on the line of scrimmage and just try to disrupt your timing.
100%.
But I think that's where you don't want him having to deal with as much.
Right.
But, man, you get him against zone, in breakers, out breakers, finding the soft spots, right? It's such a nuance to that.
Right.
And not only that, but don't tip off where you're going.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Stem your route. If that guy's dropping to curl a flat, or a hook curl, stem in that direction, then break it out and break in front of him, right? And get away from him. And I think he does a lot of those things very well.
And I guess the final thing, and I appreciate both of you guys for giving me your time as well, that I got to ask you guys. Bengals fans are clamoring for Brock Bowers, right?
Sure.
I mean,
I bet.
It's been a revolving door in Cincinnati at the tight end position for quite some time, and they're looking for somebody to lock that down. Now, obviously, I personally believe the Bengals figured that out before the draft. But let's play make-believe. Let's put on the GM cap for a second. Does Brock Bowers fit the Bengals offense? And what would that look like in you guys' opinion? Do you guys think he's an ideal fit for them?
I think he is. And I just kind of, obviously it depends how you're going to utilize him. You got to utilize him in the right ways. But I look at Tyler Boyd. Like getting a little bit older, right?
Yeah.
T. Higgins spot on the team, okay, not as 100% solidified.
Sure.
Don't get tagged, but I think that's up in the air as well. So it's like you have these two guys. You know, one is just an overall receiving option that they might need a big time receiver, but also like Tyler Boyd's getting a little bit older. They don't have a like number one dude from the tight end spot. And it's like, you could kind of fill that role of like, all right, we got a lot of slot wide receiver snaps that we can now allocate to Brock Bowers if we brought him in. And I think that you have the opportunity to, again, fill a major tight end spot with him as well. So to me, I do think that he would fit the Bengals. And I do a lot of mock drafts, and, you know, sometimes I feel like it's unrealistic that Bowers makes it all the way to the Bengals. But there are other times where I go, maybe it's not, right? Just because you don't know how, because the investment in super high draft picks at tight end haven't really worked out as well as you maybe wanted them to. So is the league going to get kind of scared of that? Is it going to drop a little bit? I don't know if he's going to get past the Colts at 15 if he makes to 15, right? I think that might be the biggest roadblock to the Bengals' dreams of maybe drafting him. But I think that I still believe he's going to get picked somewhere between pick 11 and pick 20. It's going to be somewhere in the middle of the first round. And I think if that's the case, the Bengals, whether it's at their spot or maybe a little bit of a trade up, are going to have the opportunity to jump on him if they want to.
And I agree with you. I think he fits them well, mainly because looking at that offense, they run some zone blocking concepts. And you're talking about if you want to put them in line, you can run them in that zone, right? L-step, let's wash guys down. You don't have to be super physical at the point of attack and move a body. You could just use their momentum against them. But then also, with Joe Burrow, with Jamar Chase, you talking the tight ends that's on the team right now for in 2023 kind of for I believe 680 total receiving yards. I think Hudson, Sample, and I forget maybe Irv Smith. I think is the other one. Like 3 tight ends kind of for less than 700 yards receiving.
Right.
I believe Brock Bowers can walk into this offense year one and get 700.
Yeah, right. I agree.
As a floor.
I agree.
You know what I mean? With Joe Burrow, with Zach Taylor calling plays, the play action, the zone game, the ability, and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, even if T. Higgins is gone, Jamar Chase is going to get doubled. Somebody's going to get single coverage.
Right.
And if I'm getting single coverage with a guy like Brock Bowers, I want that against safeties. I want that against some linebackers. If that's the case, I think that they can do a lot of good things in Cincinnati.
Damian, Trevor, I appreciate you guys taking the time to
appreciate it.
Have this conversation about Brock Bowers. Make sure you guys keep it locked all throughout the rest of the week for our NFL 2024 draft combine coverage as we break all these things down with you guys. I'm sure this won't be the last time I'm sitting down with these guys, but I appreciate you guys. Make sure you guys follow them on their socials. Link will be down in the description. Appreciate you guys.
Appreciate it.